They called him the King of Pop, but very few people truly understood the price he paid for that crown. Behind the music, the fame, and the controversy, Michael Jackson had actually been trying to tell us something. Through his lyrics, speeches, and even his downfall, he left clues about corruption, control, and how the entertainment industry destroys the very stars it creates. He warned us about the media's power to twist the truth, the corporations that profit from artists, and the system that punishes those who break free. Unfortunately, most people were too distracted by the headlines to listen. In this video, we'll be taking a closer look at the bold messages hidden in Michael Jackson's music that most people missed, the behind-the-scenes battles he fought for creative freedom, and the controversial events that led to his downfall. Make sure to subscribe for more media breakdowns such as this one, and let's get started. Before Michael Jackson became the most famous musician on earth, he was a child performer working under strict control. The Jackson 5 was one of Motown Records' biggest acts, but the group had very little say in their own music. Songs were chosen for them, producers decided how they should sound, and they earned far less than what their work was worth. Michael started performing at just 6 years old, and by his teenage years, he already understood that success in the music industry often came with limits. By the mid-1970s, those limits became too much. Michael and his brothers wanted to write and produce their own songs, but Motown refused to let them. That disagreement led to a major split in 1975. The group left Motown and signed with Epic Records under a new name, the Jacksons. Michael's brother Jermaine stayed behind because he was married to the daughter of Motown's founder. The move marked a turning point for Michael. It was the first time he stood up to a system that treated artists like products. It also planted the idea that to protect his talent, he needed to be independent. When he began recording Off the Wall in 1979, Michael was ready to prove he could stand on his own. He worked closely with producer Quincy Jones and started writing some of his own songs. The album was a huge success, selling millions of copies around the world. For the first time, people began to see Michael Jackson as more than a member of a family group. He was a solo artist with his own sound and vision. But even with all that success, the industry didn't treat him the same as white pop stars, who sold fewer records. Off the Wall was one of the biggest albums of the decade, yet it won only 1 Grammy. Major magazines didn't put him on their covers, and music critics described his work as R&B instead of pop, as if his music couldn't reach the same status as artists like Elton John or Billy Joel. Michael saw this as a sign that no matter how good he was, he would have to fight harder for the same level of respect and recognition. That realization pushed him to aim even higher with his next project, Thriller. Everything changed with Thriller in 1982. It became the best-selling album in history and turned Michael into a global superstar. The music videos, the choreography, and the songs redefined pop culture. Yet the bigger he got, the more control the industry tried to keep over him. Record labels pushed strict release schedules, sponsors demanded appearances, and executives decided what interviews he could give and what topics he should avoid. The media turned every small mistake into a headline because controversy sold more papers than truth. Companies controlled the rights to most of his music, meaning Michael didn't fully own the songs that made him famous. When he tried to change contracts or ask for better terms, he met resistance from the very people who depended on his success. He saw that his career had become a business built around him, but not for him. The more money he made, the more power others gained over his work. Michael realized he had created something enormous, but he didn't truly own it. And that realization would shape the rest of his fight with the industry. In the late 1980s, his songs started to get bolder. Leave Me Alone and Tabloid Junkie were direct responses to how the media treated him. Constant invasion of privacy, made-up stories, and endless scrutiny. He felt watched and used. Behind the fame and money, he was struggling to hold on to his identity. This fight for identity began in 1985, when he made a move no one expected. Using money from Thriller, Michael bought ATV Music Publishing for about $47.5 million. The purchase gave him ownership of more than 250 Beatles songs, along with thousands of other recordings. At the time, many thought it was an impulsive decision. But Michael understood something most artists didn't. Whoever owns the publishing rights controls the music. That single purchase gave him long-term financial power and independence from record labels. Throughout the early 1990s, that catalog became one of the most valuable in the business. When he merged it with Sony's publishing arm to create Sony/ATV, he kept half ownership. The deal made him one of the most influential figures in global music. But his newfound independence also made him a target. Most artists depended on record labels for everything: promotion, production, and exposure. But Michael didn't. He could fund his own work and negotiate as an equal. That made executives anxious. And quietly, they began to push back. By 2001, those tensions surfaced during the release of his album, Invincible. It was one of the most expensive albums ever made, but Michael claimed Sony didn't promote it properly. He believed the label wanted it to fail, so he would feel pressured to sell his 50% share of Sony/ATV. Behind the cameras, arguments grew heated. Michael accused Sony of manipulating the business to regain control of his publishing rights. In June 2002, he decided to speak out. During a fan rally in London, Michael stood before a crowd and called the industry corrupt. He accused record companies of exploiting artists and named Sony chairman Tommy Mottola directly, calling him mean and very devilish. He said the company was blocking his work and that powerful people in music wanted to silence him. His comments shocked the entertainment world. Few artists had ever spoken against their label, and none as publicly as Michael Jackson. After that, the tone of the media changed almost overnight. Tabloids published more aggressive stories about him: his spending, his appearance, his behavior. The timing wasn't lost on fans who believed he was being punished for telling the truth. Michael felt the same way. He believed his reputation was being attacked to push him out of the business and strip him of his influence. Still, he refused to give up. He told fans that artists needed to own their masters and protect their creative rights. For him, the fight wasn't just about money, it was about survival. He had seen how the system could turn against those who tried to stand outside it. What began as a business disagreement had become a war, and it was only getting started. Even as his public image came under attack, Michael Jackson kept doing what he did best: communicating through music. When interviews became risky and headlines were twisted, he started using his songs and videos to say what he could no longer say directly. His lyrics, visuals, and performances began carrying messages about corruption, injustice, and the loss of humanity in a world driven by power and greed. In 1991, Dangerous marked a major shift in his tone. It was more mature, more confrontational, and deeply personal. Songs like Jam and Why You Wanna Trip on Me addressed the media's obsession with celebrity scandals instead of real social issues. Black or White tackled racism and unity on a global scale, while the music video of Remember the Time celebrated African culture in a way that challenged Hollywood's usual portrayals of Black history. For Michael, this album was about breaking stereotypes and calling out hypocrisy, not just entertaining fans. But as his music grew bolder, the pressure around him intensified. Even the networks that used to praise him began portraying him as strange and unstable. Magazines ran stories mocking his face and lifestyle. Late-night shows turned him into a punchline. He had gone from the world's most admired artist to its favorite target. To many close to him, it felt intentional. Michael had spent years criticizing the media and record labels, and now both seemed determined to destroy him in return. That shift became clear in 1993, when the first allegations against him surfaced. A 13-year-old boy and his father accused Michael of child molestation. The story spread instantly across every major network. Reporters treated the accusation as fact before any evidence was presented. The coverage was non-stop, mixing speculation with rumor to fill airtime. Michael denied the claims in public statements and cooperated with investigations, but the media narrative had already turned against him. In January 1994, the case was settled out of court for an estimated $23 million, with no admission of guilt. Prosecutors later said the settlement made it harder to pursue charges, and the case was closed without a conviction. Still, the damage to his reputation was permanent. Years of charity work, humanitarian projects, and record-breaking success were suddenly replaced by headlines that portrayed him as a criminal before the law ever reached a decision. For Michael, that year marked the beginning of his downfall in the public eye. He retreated from interviews and canceled parts of his tour, saying he felt betrayed by the same industry he had helped make richer. Those close to him said he became more cautious, more withdrawn, and deeply distrustful of the people around him. Yet even during this period of isolation, he refused to stop creating. In 1996, he released the song "They Don't Care About Us," one of the boldest songs of his career. It was a protest against government corruption, racial discrimination, and police brutality. The lyrics, "Tell me what has become of my rights. Am I invisible because you ignore me?" were a clear reflection of how he felt both as a citizen and as a public figure under attack. The music video, directed by Spike Lee, was filmed in Brazil's favelas, showing poverty and social inequality that mainstream pop rarely acknowledged. The message was simple. Those in power often look away from the suffering of the poor. Michael's frustration also came through in his song "Money," a track that openly criticized greed within both politics and business. He sang about people doing anything for wealth, lying, cheating, even destroying others. Around the same time, "Scream," a duet with his sister Janet, became an outlet for anger and exhaustion. It was written after years of tabloid pressure and lawsuits, and the lyrics made it clear he was tired of being manipulated. "Stop pressuring me," he sang, as someone fighting to be heard in a system that thrived on tearing him down. Even his short films carried coded meaning. In Ghosts, Michael played both the misunderstood artist and the fearful mayor trying to destroy him. The story was about how society isolates anyone who doesn't fit its expectations. It was an allegory. Through art, he was showing how power and fear are used to control people. Then came another round of accusations in 2003. This time, a teenage boy who had appeared in a television documentary about Michael claimed he had been sexually abused. The program, filmed by British journalist Martin Bashir, showed scenes of Michael at his Neverland Ranch and included moments that many viewers found troubling. Within weeks of the broadcast, police searched his property, and he was charged with multiple counts of child molestation and providing alcohol to a minor. The coverage became a global circus. Cameras followed him from his home to the courthouse. His arrest was televised, and images of him in handcuffs replayed on every major news outlet. Commentators speculated endlessly about his guilt before the trial even began. In 2005, after months of testimony and public scrutiny, Michael was found not guilty on all charges. The court cleared him completely, but the verdict could not undo the damage. Years of constant headlines had shaped a public opinion that never fully recovered. Michael saw the ordeal as part of the same system he had warned about, an industry and a media landscape that could turn on anyone who stopped playing by its rules. To him, the accusations were not only false but weaponized, meant to silence his influence and destroy his credibility. The legal victory was real, but public trust was gone. His name had become shorthand for scandal, overshadowing everything he had created. After the trial, he became a quieter figure. He lived mostly out of sight, working on music privately and avoiding interviews. For Michael, the lesson was clear. When truth threatens profit, the system doesn't debate. It eliminates the messenger. Michael had challenged the system that profited from artists, and in return the system had erased the man behind the music. In the years that followed, he lived quietly. He spent time with his children, recorded new songs in private, and spoke rarely in public. When he did appear, he often looked tired but determined. He was preparing for a comeback tour called "This Is It," meant to reclaim his legacy and reconnect with his audience. It was his chance to tell his story his way. But in June 2009, just weeks before the tour began, he died suddenly at the age of 50. The official cause was cardiac arrest after being given a powerful hospital anesthetic called propofol in his home. His personal doctor, Conrad Murray, had administered the drug to help him sleep. Investigators found that the medication was used improperly, and in 2011, Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter for causing Michael's death through negligence. The news of his death stunned the world. Suddenly, fans poured into the streets in cities across the globe. Candlelight vigils appeared in Los Angeles, London, Paris, and Manila. Millions gathered online to share memories, videos, and songs. People who had once criticized him began revisiting his music, seeing the depth and meaning in his lyrics. Songs like "They Don't Care About Us," "Money," and "Earth." Song now sounded different to them. Even the same media that had spent years attacking him suddenly filled the airwaves with tributes. It was a strange and painful reversal, respect given only after he was gone. But even in death, his warnings remained. Through his work, Michael had revealed how fame, race, and ownership intersect in the modern world. He had lived inside the machine that shapes global culture and tried to show what it does to the people who keep it running. The music industry thrives on control. Control of songs, images, and the artists themselves. When Michael fought to own his catalog, he exposed that truth. When he spoke about greed and exploitation, he revealed how deep it went. And when he was silenced, he became evidence of what happens when someone refuses to conform. Today, many musicians speak openly about creative rights and unfair contracts. Some of them credit Michael's struggle for inspiring theirs. His story has become a lesson in how much independence can cost. In the end, Michael Jackson's message wasn't only about entertainment, it was about ownership, of art, of truth, and of self. He wanted the world to understand how easily all of it can be taken away. And though the man is gone, the warning he gave still echoes in every artist who chooses freedom over control. If you found value in Michael Jackson's story, give this video a like and subscribe to Wealth Uncut for more breakdowns of the hidden truths behind music, power, and history. Every legend leaves a message behind. Our job is to make sure it isn't forgotten. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.